as you said, buy now, pay later, it's becoming more and more popular. I think around 7% of purchases around Black Friday were made using buy now, pay later, which is huge. There's a great article by Amanda Mull out about buy now, pay later. And of course, we've seen just this spreading around to all kinds of purchases, including now groceries and food delivery. And because, these payments, as a purchaser, you don't pay interest. And these big companies like Klarna being the biggest, they are selling potentially that debt. It's all happening in private markets, so we don't really know.
Oh, okay.
But potentially there are actually burrito-backed securities.
So what are the defaults like, Max, in that area right now? Like, are people having trouble paying these things back?
There are a lot of people we talked about this with Amanda Mull of Business Week on the podcast. There are people missing payments, but the default rates are still pretty low. I think bottom line is this is a pretty new thing, and it's not yet clear if people are just using this essentially like a credit card. I think the response from your kids would be, if they want to use it, is just like, this is a credit card. It's no different. And like many of the buy now, pay later users are just using them as a substitute. They link their bank account into it. It's just a way that they're, sort of moving the money the same way people use credit cards. And in fact, some of these buy now, pay later companies are starting to do, they have lounges. They're doing some of the same things that credit card companies are doing. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is kind of what you're hinting at, Paul. There's the risk that you're buying something and you aren't really thinking through how you're going to pay for it. And then that's especially bad if you're piling it up on top of other debt, other credit card debt, other payments, things like that.
Do we know who's bearing the credit risk here?
That's really interesting. So that is where things get a little foggy. So as a buyer, you will essentially, your payment of whatever you're buying, your couch, will be spread out over 4 payments or 6 payments. The company, Klarna, or the other buy now, pay later company, will charge the person selling the couch. So they are paying a fee. Now, if you don't make your payments, then they kind of come after you, but apparently they're not really routed in through the credit bureaus, so it might not necessarily ding your credit. That may be starting to change. They will potentially charge some interest, but yeah, I mean, like Max was saying, I think the deferral rate or the missed payment rate is up to 40%, which is huge, but the default rate is like 2 or 3%, which is much lower than credit cards. So it's a very strange world and growing.
So then who is attracted to buy now, pay later? Why do that? Make the argument for that versus a credit card.
Oh, so 2 things. One is retailers like it because it's a way to drive more purchases. So you're seeing, if you've been shopping for Christmas gifts lately, you're seeing these buy now, pay later things being promoted pretty heavily, right? Like they're offering it as an option. They're even inducements, things like that. Obviously, like if you are not paying for, not paying the full cost up front, like people might be more willing to spend more money. This is really not that different from those like retail credit cards. Remember you go to a store and they try to sell you a retail credit card. They give you 10% off and you don't have to pay any money, right? Because they're going to bill you. Same kind of situation. There are discounts. So consumers are going to be attracted to this both because of the buy now, pay later thing, but also because at times there are discounts for getting into these programs. Basically, these Klarna and the other buy now, pay later companies, Affirm, what they want to do is own you as a customer. And after they've got you to buy now, pay later on some item, they're offering debt. They're doing the things basically that credit cards companies do. And so that's so it's in the same way that like consumer finance companies will spend a lot of money up front to acquire customers. These companies are giving a lot of basically free debt to people for refrigerators and handbags and so on to try to keep you in their system.
And is it easier to get a buy now, pay later loan than a credit card? So which I think you are, it's attracting a different kind of shopper.
Yes, it skews much younger, so you're right to be worried about your children. And it's also really appealing to people who don't have very good credit or who don't have credit, who either aren't eligible for a credit card or who would be in a situation with a credit card with a really, really high interest rate. So it's really filling that gap.
What these companies say, so you hear this, you might think warning bells, right? Because hey, worse standards, we're headed for a crisis. What these companies say is that they're using kind of like sophisticated algorithms to figure out who they can loan to, and their argument is that credit like credit score doesn't always reflect your true ability to pay, especially when you're talking about younger consumers who, maybe have jobs but not a ton of credit history.
Klarna went public back in September of this year at $40 a share, trading at $31 right now. Stacey, Vanek Smith, Max Chafkin, they are the co-hosts of Everybody's Business Podcast. Check that out and get that podcast anywhere you get your podcast stuff.